Hi, I'm Michele from the Portland Public Library in Portland, Maine. I'm so happy you joined me for PPL Learns. Today we're going to read Cubs in the Tub, written by Candace Fleming, illustrated by Julie Downing, and published by Neil Porter Books. Cubs in the Tub, the true story of the Bronx Zoo's first woman zookeeper, by Candace Fleming, illustrated by Julie Downing. Helen and Fred Martini longed for a baby to bottle feed and burp, a baby to rock and soothe and croon lullabies to, a baby to love with all their hearts. Every morning, Fred went off to his job at the Bronx Zoo. Helen stayed home to dream and plan, but still there was no baby. Until, just do for him what you would do for a human baby. Helen had never held a lion cub before, much less cared for one. Still, she took the baby in her arms. He was tiny, so newly born, his eyes were still closed. "Why isn't he with his mother?" she asked. Fred explained. The mother lion had lost the instinct to take care of her baby. She wouldn't feed him. She wouldn't clean him. She refused even to look at him. Helen cradled the baby close, and she marveled at the tiny buds of his ears and the tender pink undersides of his toes. "MacArthur, I'll name you MacArthur." The first thing MacArthur needed was a bath. Good thing Helen had a baby tub. She sang a lullaby as she sponged his fur. Soon he was as fluffy as a soft lamb. MacArthur gave a husky cry. Good thing she had those baby bottles and all those cans of formula milk. MacArthur slurped. Then, a gentle pat on his back brought up the bubbles in his belly, and with a sigh, the baby snuggled his downy head into the curve of Helen's neck. His sweet breath warmed her skin. Tiptoeing to the crib, good thing she had one, she tucked him in, curling his little legs beneath him. MacArthur dreamed and grew. Helen kept a record of his firsts. On their 11th day together, MacArthur opened his eyes. They were a soft blue. On their 15th day together, he got his first tooth, a needle-sharp incisor. And on their 21st day together, he took his first stumbling steps. A great day. Soon, MacArthur was pouncing at Helen's ankles, chewing on Fred's boots, and leaping into their laps whenever either of them sat. What a joy it was to have a baby in the house. But when MacArthur was 2 months old, officials decided to send him to a zoo in another city. Helen held her baby close until the car came and tried to smile as MacArthur was driven away. Then she folded up the baby blankets, stowed tub, crib, and bottles, and sank into the rocking chair with empty arms and empty lap. Gray day followed gray day. Until they're in a pretty bad way. Helen stroked the babies, so cold, so thin, so still. Good thing she had a heating pad. She slipped it beneath their tiny bodies and turned it to high, and then she mixed a batch of warm formula and squeezed it into their mouths. Drip, drop, drip. 1, 2, 3 baby tigers began to wiggle. The kitchen filled with the faint chorus of high-pitched cries. She named them Raniganj, Dhaka, and Rajpur. And once they started eating, they could not stop. Every 3 hours, around the clock. Good thing Helen had Fred to help with those 2 a.m. feedings. By the end of their first week, the babies had doubled their weight to 4 pounds. Days passed. Blue eyes opened and folded ears perked up. Little teeth poked through pink gums. Personalities appeared. Roniganj cried whenever Helen put him down and bit and scratched when he didn't get his way. Daka was forever boxing her brothers' faces with her fat little paws and then rolling on top of them and pinning them down. Rajpur liked to sleep. Good-naturedly, he accepted whatever came his way, especially food. Helen let them get away with all sorts of mischief. They romped and tumbled. They snuggled and purred. What a joy it was to have 3 babies in the house. But when they were 3 months old, it's time for the cubs to return to the zoo. Not without me, not this time. And when the car came for them, Helen climbed in. Her babies needed her. At the zoo, she turned the glass-paneled cage into a cozy home. Blankets, bottles, boxes of toys. Good thing Helen had brought them all. Then, peeking around the partition, she watched her babies play. She called them back for naps and snacks and cuddles. There she is peeking. That night, when the visitors left the zoo, the cubs sensed that Helen was leaving too. Roniganj cried. Daka clung to her ankles, and Rajpur scrambled up into Helen's arms and wrapped his paws around her neck. Refusing to stay in their cribs, the 3 struggled against sleep. It was midnight before Helen finally tiptoed home. In her own bed, she tossed and turned. She imagined she heard her babies crying. At first light, she rushed back to the zoo. Her little ones were still curled up, fast asleep. She kissed 1, 2, 3 sleepy cubs awake. Then it was bottles, baths, time to play. Day followed day. No one noticed Helen, so no one told her to go home. Helen began to dream and plan. Is there an empty room around, she asked. Fred showed her the storeroom in secret, and between bottles and baths, Helen cleaned, painted, decorated, and created. A nursery! Good thing Helen had all that baby equipment. That first night, the baby sniffed at the pink ceiling and pale blue walls, the ruffled curtains, the cribs and toys. Then snuggling close to Helen, they purred. Now the cubs could spend their days in the glass-paneled cage, but they spent their nights with Helen in the nursery. News of the nursery reached zoo officials. They stormed through the door and stopped dead in their tracks. Helen raised her chin. My babies need me. The officials looked at one another. So they do, agreed Mr. Crandall, the zoo curator, and he offered her the job of keeper of the nursery. Helen was delighted and surprised. Only men held zookeeper jobs until now. Helen had mothered her way into becoming the first woman zookeeper at the Bronx Zoo. She and her nursery stayed. The babies grew too big for laps, too big for cribs, too big for the nursery. Officials moved them to a large outdoor enclosure without Helen. They worried the 10-month-old tigers would hurt her. Nonsense. Even though they were twice her size, Helen argued they still run to me for protection and comfort. But zoo officials were firm. Helen would never again be allowed to enter the tiger's cage. Pressed against the outside of the bars, her arms felt empty. But not for long. What a happy zoo family. The end. Thank you for joining me. We just read Cubs in the Tub by Candace Fleming, illustrated by Julie Downing, published by Neil Porter Books. I'm Michelle at the Portland Public Library in Portland, Maine, and I'll see you next time.